Rob Ellis hanging out with you on this Football Friday as the Eagles win 34-28 over the Vikings. All right, Gunnar. So let's look at the offense here. We mentioned a little bit earlier that the passing game certainly is not where it needs to be, not acceptable, has got to get fixed, because when you start taking on the big boys here, look, the Vikings presented their own problems because the Eagles had some injuries. Patriots present their own problems because it's Bill Belichick and what he does. But I'm talking about when you're facing Kansas City and Miami and Buffalo and Dallas and those teams where you may not be able to just run right through them like you did last night, or you could be trailing in a game where you got to come back quickly. You got to figure this thing out. And there's too much talent there with Goedert and A.J. Brown and Devonta to not be better in the passing game for sure. And if you look at last night, Jalen, 18 for 23, 193 yards in the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 98 passer rating, 4 sacks, 12 rushes, 35 yards, just 2.9 per carry and a touchdown. I realize not all of those are designed, Derek.
Yep.
But none of it looked good. None of the RPO reads look good. None of the quarterback draws or the quarterback keepers that are designs. Nothing looks smooth. And I'm not trying to hint like Jalen's hurt or anything like that, but he just looks hesitant to me I don't know that he's, thinking about the contract. I don't know, but he just looks like he's sort of tiptoeing his way through stuff. Whereas last year he was hitting everything with like conviction, and it doesn't feel that way to me.
I think it's a combination of Brian Johnson still trying to figure out what he wants to do, what he wants his version of this Eagles offense identity to be, and the fact, I think what A.J. Brown said after the first game was very telling in terms of how defenses are trying to disguise better what they're going to do to us, and we're not countering it quickly enough. I think that's a definitive reason why the offense looks jagged at certain times. I don't want to say Jalen is seeing ghosts, but defenses are giving him illusions. And then all of a sudden, it completely changes once that ball is snapped. And now where he thought his primary lane was going to be isn't there anymore. And he's taking more time to find those secondary and third lanes. This is the part of the evolving process when you have a new coordinator in the fold, even though you're working with the same offense. He doesn't call the game the same way as Shane Steichen does.
Right.
Maybe Brian doesn't see things as quickly as Shane. Kudos to him finally identifying if the Vikings are going to stay in this 3-man front and drop 8 when we go back, we're going to pound it on them. Mm-hmm. And I jokingly said last night on our JAKIB postgame show, I think Lane Johnson should get offensive coordinator of the night. Do you remember the one play they ran, and he turns to the sidelines and says, keep it going, keep it going. Yep. And sure enough, the Vikings could do nothing to stop it. If the Vikings were able to stop the Eagles on certain rundown situations, it might be a little bit different game, but Vikings defense was gassed. There's no question that defense was gassed. And the Eagles kept taking it to them in that regard, which helped them control the clock and the lead.
Yeah, time of possession, Eagles 39 minutes, 28 seconds to the Vikings 20 minutes, 32. That is domination in terms of time of possession. It really is. So, all right, let's go there. They decide then we're going to go back to the bread and butter. Here's what it reminded me of, Derek. If you go back to 2021, which was Nick's first year, Jalen's first year as a starter, they start off 2-5. He turns the play calling over to Shane Steichen. They go run heavy after that, right? And when they do go run heavy after that, everything changes for them. And even go back to last year. You remember a couple of the games that they really had to put on ice, like the Cardinals game or the Texans game or the Colts game. They really did it on the backs of their running game.
Yep.
And then last night was the same thing. All right, the pass isn't working. We're going to commit to this, and here we go. And, they commit to it to the tune of just utter domination. I was looking at some stats here with them in terms of rushing games under Nick. So they've rushed for 200-plus yards in 10 of 36 games under Nick Sirianni. That's a lot.
Woo!
It's almost a third of their games they've been able to get over the 200-yard mark, right? And last night was no different, 259 rushing yards on 48 carries, which is even more impressive when you consider that's 5.5 yards per carry that they were able to run it up there on. So Swift, And by the way, how about the one drive? 16 plays, 13 of which were runs.
Yes.
And it took almost 8 minutes up.
Yes.
Which ends in a touchdown. It was like an old school, like go back to the 70s or 60s.
Smash mouth football. Smash mouth.
It really was. But let's give some love here to DeAndre Swift, who was just absolutely, magnificent. What I really appreciated about him, Derek, he was not one bit afraid to hit it right up the gut. He don't try to bounce things or doing any of that. So he ends up going 28 rushes, $175, 6.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. How does this guy get 2 touches week 1?
I think he was sending a direct message to the organization. Don't ever let there be another game as long as I'm healthy where I'm only getting 2 touches, 1 run and 1 pass play. When I look at a DeAndre Swift run, he reminds me so much of Le'Veon Bell. That hesitation moving the backfield. You notice he's very patient in terms of letting his blocking set up before he decides where he's going to go. Yeah. Whether it's to make a quick cut to the outside. See, to be a hesitation runner like that, you have to have 2 things. Nimble feet, vision, 3 things. Nimble feet, vision, and the ability to accelerate in a hurry. And he has all 3 of those things. When you have arguably the best offensive line in the game and they're mauling people like that, it does make your job easier. But the back also has to pick the right hole. And whether he was dipping to the outside or going up the middle, DeAndre Swift, watch when he runs that little hesitation body move that he has behind the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. He's giving the offensive line to do their thing before he makes his move. And although he's not the biggest back out there, he's still strong enough to lower that shoulder and pick up additional yards. Those things consistently wear a defense down. When you've got a 16-play drive and 13 of them are runs, that's as demoralizing as it gets for a defense because no matter what type of adjustments they're trying to make, you can't stop it.
And your offensive line loves it. They love run blocking. I mean, they really, if you look at what they did, Derek, a lot of this was on the back of Kelsey and the guards. I thought the guards were excellent last night. I thought Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson did a really nice job. Yeah. Kelsey's still Kelsey. If anybody had any questions after week 1. And that's really where a lot of this was inside the tackle box is where they ran a lot last night. Real quick though, I know you just retweeted this as well, but Adam Schefter from ESPN, Eagles defensive back Avonte Maddox is feared to have torn his pec during Thursday night's win over the Vikings per source. He is expected to get a second opinion, but if it is confirmed, he would be out for the season. Man,
that's not good.
No.
Now you've got to come up with another slot corner. Maybe we understand now why Bradbury was getting some reps at the slot corner as well. I don't see Bradbury as a definitive slot type corner. He's more effective on the outside.
Yeah.
So either one of these young kids, whether it's Goodrich or one of these kids, is going to have to step up. Is it Sidney Brown?
Job?
But you're going to have to rely on one of these young kids. If you're not going to go out and try to spend money on the open market to get somebody in here. I hate to see it, man, because watching Avonte Maddox grow, very humble, very well thought out before he speaks, plays the game with all his heart, not the biggest guy out there in the world. It's unfortunate every year something happens to him, and it's a shame if that is the case, what Adam Schefter is reporting, his season is gone. And that's why I said, before, it doesn't look good for him, and I couldn't find out whether it was the shoulder or the pec. Now Schefter's saying it's the pec. If it's definitely confirmed, there's no question he's not coming back this year.
Yeah, your depth is as follows. Let's assume Bradbury comes back Monday night against the Bucs. So we know the starters are on the outside. It's Bradbury and Slay, but you get beyond that, it's Job, it's Mario Goodrich, it's Eli Ricks, it's Keely Ringo. You're talking about a bunch of kids, man. Like you need a veteran. They're going to need Derek to bring a veteran corner in. Potentially even another safety. I mean, that ain't good. And then, look, I hate to say it, and there's no real explanation for it, but this is the kind of stuff that just sort of happens when you're coming off a Super Bowl season. And they got fortunate last year. Most of the injuries were really short term.
Yep.
3 games, whatever. But this one could potentially be the season. And that's a shame because he's a very good slot corner too. In addition to all the other, he's a good dude, and he is.
Yeah.
But he's a good player too. So,
and nobody in the NFL has sympathy for anybody's injuries. Everybody is going through injuries.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to the Eagles, nobody in the league is going to have any sympathy for the Eagles. in terms of how many guys fall by the wayside, because that is the team that everybody is measuring themselves against. It's a shame that it has to happen. And let's face it, the depth on the back end of the defense, we talked about this all training camp, was thin at best. The fact that Terrell Edmonds couldn't even win the starting job coming out of training camp tells me they're not happy with this situation. And if you look at the way he played when he got in there last night, he made some glaring mistakes as well.
Yep.
So now you have a couple of positions you may have to address on the back end of that defense. Now, we saw how he do it last year in the trenches when he went out and got Linval Joseph and Dominican Sue. What's out there in the open market right now that can come in and help this team right away? But if Howie's going to make a move, he needs to make a move today or tomorrow to get whoever he's going to bring in acclimated if they're going to be needed Monday night to go against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin down in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're not going against anybody easy. You're talking about two premier wide receivers, with these guys. That's one of the things that Tampa has is very good wide receiver talent. That much is for sure. All right, so back to the offense here. So we mentioned 259 rushing yards, DeAndre Swift 175. There were just so many encouraging signs there with him and how well he played. He was just really, really good in general. And where I will give Brian Johnson and Nick credit is, look, you can go into a game with a plan, and it's the old Tyson line, right? So you get punched in the mouth. But like they were able to pivot off of it and not be stubborn. And for the most part, here's the only thing that was weird. After the blow up at the beginning of the fourth quarter with A.J. Brown, they started throwing again. And I'm wondering if they were doing that to try to pacify him a little bit. I don't know, but I don't like it if that's what they were doing. But other than that, they really stayed consistent with the run. Even that last drive, they pounded it right down the Vikings' throat.
Well, you could tell right after that they were doing what they could to appease them, because Jalen goes right down the field. He rolls out, hits him for an apparent touchdown, is called back because of holding. And then the next time they go to him on an out route, and instead of coming back to the ball, he turns up, and the DB cuts in front of him and slaps the ball away.
Well, and the other one he got interfered on too.
He got interfered on, yeah. Which they didn't call. So they definitely did that to appease him. But in the heat of a battle, especially if a game is close, you can't do that. You can't just go to him. You have to go with what a defense is giving you. You can't just go to someone to appease them, because that's taking you out of character and continuity of what you're trying to accomplish, and could hurt you against better teams more than it could help you.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So they were dominant on the ground. We're left wondering, exactly what this is going to look like here, from a passing standpoint. So, but not to say that there weren't some good things offensively. I mean, Devonta Smith, Derek, is becoming a superstar in front of our very eyes. I mean, even the first catch, the deep shot, I think it was 54 yards, whatever it was, that was an underthrown ball by Jalen. He hits him in stride. It's a touchdown. But he goes up. He makes really tough traffic catches for a skinny guy.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a catch. And then, obviously he had the deep shot too, but what a stud he is.
Great body control for him to turn around on a full run like that and catch that one for 54 yards. And then the thing that impressed me about the 63-yard catch, once he got by the cornerback, when he caught the ball, he never broke stride. When you see receivers catch deep balls like that, unless your name's Tyreek Hill, you see them, step up there, put a little bit more pep in their step trying to get to the end zone. He never broke stride. The DB caught up a little bit, but couldn't quite catch him. And I think he's deceptively fast. Now, we knew he was fast. I didn't know he was that fast, And, Rob, same guy, once again, took a hellacious shot over the middle on that interception.
He got drilled by
and got up like nothing happened. And Seth Joyner now sitting there looking at each other going, how in the world does this kid keep getting up?
Yeah.
To be as slight a build as he is, but nothing phases this kid, man. He is a complete receiver. He may be emerging as the Eagles' #1 receiver. Last year it was definitely AJ. This year it could be him.
Yeah, he's unbelievably precise in his route running. I was really impressed in the Super Bowl, Derek. He took some shots, the couple along the sideline.
Yeah,
and the dude pops up. I give him total props. But yeah, he was very good in a night where your passing game wasn't anything special. He was. The other thing it felt like to me, and again, just my observation. Tell me where you fall with this. I don't blame them necessarily for this, but they were trying to sort of force feed Goedert with some high percentage throws.
Yeah.
And it's not his, like the tight end screen for him is not really his game. You need to, they need to work him the way that the Vikings were working Hawkinson last night. I mean, Goedert had 6 catches for 22 yards. That's less than 4 yards per catch. I mean, it was just useless stuff, honestly.
Well, I don't have a problem with teams using the tight end screen because it does work. There's a time and place for it. But, again, here's the scenario. We said, I guarantee you that coming out of the gate, they're going to try to go to Goedert early, which they did,
Right.
To get him more in the flow of a game after what he had last year, last week, 1 target and no catches. But you're right. I think they misutilized him. I think he's better, especially in flat routes, curls over the middle, setting down in the hole, looking for the open space. I didn't see enough of that from him. And a lot of times, if you consistently go to your tight end and he's killing a team underneath, what's going to happen? Somebody has to try to cheat up to defend that. When they cheat up, then you're allowing your outside wideouts to have more one-on-one coverages when it comes to deep post, as we saw with that deep post that Devonta Smith ran and scored a 63-yard touchdown on. They've got to do a better job of incorporating Dallas Goedert in the game in the middle of the field the way the Vikings did with Hawkinson.
Yeah. And I think, again, this all goes back to what we're talking about here, that they're not there yet. I mean, they're just not there yet. And we all thought that the offense would be further along than it is, but they're not. And even when you have talented players, it can lack cohesion. And right now they're lacking cohesion. I don't think they know what their identity is. I mean, maybe the identity turns into they're a running team, but we know ultimately this team wants to pass to get a lead and then run the ball to milk the clock. That's what they would ideally like to do. That's what Howie wants to do. That's what Nick wants to do. This goes back to Joe Banner and Andy Reid. That's what they want to do organizationally. Now, they may have to default to this, but I don't think we're there yet. My opinion is with the offense, it's just early and they're ironing out kinks, and it's going to take a minute when you have a new coordinator. That's where I'm at. Like, I'm not in, oh my God, Jalen's regressed, this offense is in big trouble mode. I'm not there yet.
There's too much holdover talent from last year. The entire offense is back, number one. It has shown that it still has big play capability, even though it's sporadic right now. It's ironing out some of the rough edges. It's identifying a lot quicker in game situations what a defense is trying to do to you. Brian Johnson has to be able to see these things a lot quicker to make adjustments. But I will say this, as their safety valve, they are one of the few teams in the league, maybe Cleveland being the other, and maybe one other, that if things are not going smoothly overall in an offensive flow, they do have that ace in their pocket, which is a dominant offensive line that can pound you. And if you, even with the team, or if you're ahead of a team and you're trying to protect the lead and milk a clock, they can consistently get that done. There's very few defenses in the NFL that can stand toe-to-toe with this Eagles offensive line in terms of trench warfare when it comes to a running game. Now, you look at a team like Tampa, they have that Vita Vea, and that's a big boy.
Oh, man.
He's going to be clogging up a lot of space in the middle, which will allow the other guys around him to do a lot of different things. The Buccaneers also have a very good trio of linebackers, headlined by Avonte David. So the game plan is going to have to be different. Now, obviously, the first few series for both offense and defense, it's a feeling out process. What exactly is Tampa trying to do? How do we counter this quicker? Because let's face it, Rob, to be quite honest, as we sit here today, I'm elated the Eagles are 2-0. But Lady Luck has shined brightly on them for 2 games now. You go back to that Patriots game, they get 2 turnovers. One was a pick six. The other one sets them up in prime position. They get 13 points off of that and build a 16-0 lead.
Yeah.
Vikings turn the ball over 4 times. That kid Powell, beautiful putt return. And again, special teams.
They were going to be in great field position, Derek.
Yes. Put him at the Eagles 30-yard line.
Yep.
Fumbles the ball before he hits the ground.
Yep.
And that Justin Jefferson gaff was a game changer.
Everything that flipped that whole game, man.
Yes.
That's worst case. They're getting 3 there, probably 7, and the Eagles may not have time to do anything for Elliott to get that what was 61-yard or whatever it was.
Yes.
It changed everything.
There's no question about it. That took a lot of a wind out of Minnesota's sail. when that play occurred like that. And I'll give Jefferson credit. You saw him beating his chest saying, "That's on me. That's on me." He knows he's better than that.
I hate that rule, by the way.
I do too. I don't understand the rule. I hate that rule, Rob. And obviously it's not going to change because so many teams have been affected by that rule in recent years. It is what it is now. Luckily, in this case, it worked in favor of the Eagles.
It did. Yeah.
But for the most part, right now, this feeling out process, this finding out who we are, plugging and playing, especially on defense, plugging and playing a bunch of kids now, and relying on them more so than you thought we would. The formula is going to change a little bit. I think it's going to change a lot on defense, change a little bit on offense. Now you've got extended time to catch your breath after 2 games in 4 days. Sit back in your offices, looking at the film, breaking everything down, and not restarting from the bottom, but building a different type of building block in terms of how we want to have point counterpoint. When teams do this, we're going to come back with this much sooner in games than they've shown in the first 2.
No question. And look, the good thing is you have things that you have to fix, but you're doing it with the advantage of being 2-0 as opposed to being in a hole at 0-2. And those, the turnovers that they've got in the last 2 weeks, some of that was sort of self-inflicted stuff by the team that they were playing. But to the Eagles' credit, Sweat's getting a strip sack. Justin Evans is making a play last night. Guys are stepping up and taking the ball away. And that's something this team did at a very high clip last year for most of the year. I think they finished 3rd, but they were 1st for a long time. They're getting back to that. They have 6 turnovers caused in 2 weeks.
Yes.
3 per game, man. So that is a really good sign that they're being opportunistic here in terms of taking the ball away.
And that's the name of the game. If you can take the ball away, the defense is supposed to either stop them or take the ball away and give your team, give your potent offense an opportunity to take even more pressure off of you. And so far in 2 games, they've done that. Hey, you got Debo in the chat here says, bring Gannon back.
But here's the other thing. How would you like to be the Vikings, Derek? So 2 games this year, 7 turnovers, and they've lost by a total of 9 points. If you're Kevin O'Connell, you got to be just like, are you kidding me, man? If they just somewhat take care of the football, they could either be 2-0 or worst case 1-1. I mean, they have shot themselves in the foot in a huge way.
Obviously, the defense is a major problem for that team.
Yeah.
If you go back to the first game against Tampa, they allowed Tampa in the 4th quarter to pick up key 3rd down and key 4th down situations. And they also allowed Tampa to basically run out the clock the last 3:52 of the game. Same here. They let this Eagles offense go 16 plays down the field and chew up 8 vital minutes on the clock. No 3 and out, no 6 and out, 16 plays, 13 runs.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be smart enough to know, and you got to start cheating. They're going to run the football against you at that point. When they're having success, you're going to have to start cheating bodies up again and start taking your shots. They wouldn't do it. They stayed in these shallow fronts and allowed the Eagles just pick their way down the field and chew up the clock. 8 minutes is huge in a game of that magnitude in terms of momentum swings. And they clearly could not do anything to stop this Eagles offense. And that's the trend we've seen with Minnesota the first 2 games. Defense cannot get off the field at strategic points of the game, and it's cost them twice.
Yeah. All right. We come back. Let's talk some defense here because, yes, they ended up giving up 28 points, but they were a really banged up bunch. And we'll continue to update you if we get anything a little bit more concrete on Avonte, Maddox, some of the other injuries that the Eagles are dealing with right now. But some massive positives here with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis again. We talked about Zach Cunningham. I thought Josh Sweat was all over the place. So we'll get into that when we come back from a defensive standpoint. And like we were talking about, this is a team that's taking the ball away a lot as well. All right, so don't go anywhere. That is Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. All right, let's talk to you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances, it can be a challenge, right? It's a scary proposition to find that right person. I want you to find the right person because I did, and it has been a big time changer in my life. That's for sure. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, You might have a small business. You're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. That is another resource that Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group can help you with. Personally, I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers, and with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. It was the absolute right move for me. The other thing that I really appreciate is he's always got time for you if you have some questions about maybe, a move you want to make. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing some trends here. Do we need to do this? What is this? Can you explain to me the best way? What's the most efficient thing for me? I do that kind of stuff all the time, and Jim's always there. Just give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim